This video was sponsored by Paradox, and if you've come to this video trying to answer the question of, is this DLC good? Should I buy this one? That should pretty much answer it right there, because over the course of the 5 years of this channel, I think I've taken about 10 sponsorships, and I've ignored about 1,000. So when I first got the sponsorship emailed to me for this one, I read through all the dev diaries, I played the game I've probably played for about 6 or 7 hours at this stage, and I sat there and I wrote this enormous script that will be whizzing past on screen right now, of all the pros and the cons, and where I stand on Crusader Kings III and all that nonsense. So I thought, look, I'm not going to waste your time. There's probably a dozen other people doing that. I'm just going to answer the question. Should you buy this DLC? Yes. And I've had a bit of a weird relationship with the DLC in Crusader Kings III, and I'm sure Paradox absolutely won't mind me saying that I've been offered a lot of sponsorships for the Crusader Kings III DLC in the past, and I've turned quite a few of them down at this point because they just weren't interesting to me as a player. They've had quite a narrow scope. I'm talking about Persia, I'm talking about Spain and stuff like that. And that's why I was more than happy to jump into this DLC, because there is focus on big areas, but there's also an absolutely enormous appeal for me, speaking as Mr. Samuel Streamer, formerly Roll1D2 Games, who really got my channel start with a Landless Adventure of Crusader Kings II series. And then, of course, is Landless Adventurers coming to Crusader Kings III. Let me show you its features. The DLC, I think you can pretty arguably break down into two major points here. You've got the landless gameplay that takes place as either unlanded adventurers or estate-owning nobles, which I'll show off later on. And then the other half of the DLC goes broadly into expanding the Byzantine Empire in pretty major ways. You've got new interface, you've got new music, you've got new artwork, you've got new play styles. The administrative government, which is kind of a byproduct of the Byzantine expansion, right? Because that's what they start with. The administrative government has been fleshed out massively so that it's a totally different power structure now. You can effectively have a co-ruler with you. You can assume power as a much lower level landed noble, or even estate-owning, effectively unlanded noble, if you want to look at it like that, and work your way up. There's so much more opportunity for intrigue and interesting stories that don't simply boil down to fabricate claim and take claim somehow, or marry your way up the ladder. I like to keep things flexible, and I like the mods that add a lot of depth to it. You know, mechanics that can apply to everything. And that's what I like about this one, because even though they have focused on Byzantium quite heavily, alongside the landed adventurers, that particular government type is applicable all across the map. You can, of course, just adopt that when you've got a royal court as part of your realm elsewhere. And that means you're not just getting depth for Byzantium, which realistically, I'd probably play once and say, yep, that's me, good, that's my Byzantium playthrough done. This will apply to all of those major total conversion mods, Elder Kings, and it will apply to the Game of Thrones mod, and anything else you can think of have access to a tremendous amount of new mechanics, and I love it when that happens. Now, I'm well aware there's going to be a lot of Romaboos out there asking, what about Rome? Because, of course, Byzantium, you can't have Byzantium without Rome. So, yeah, they have redone a lot of the mechanics with that. I've played around with it in dev mode a bit, because I didn't do a legitimate conquest of the entirety of Rome in the preview build, funnily enough. But you do get a bunch of new mechanics when you reform Rome. You even get the ability to split it back up, which I thought was an incredible idea, to split it back into East and West Empire. You also get a legitimate conversion to Hellenism. And let's be honest here, Rome was always like peak Crusader Kings. That was the logical end goal before it just devolved into map painting, which is boring as hell. This is like the best opportunity, I think, to kind of have a win condition. So I'm so glad they've kind of dove into that. You can also do it from the opposite perspective too. I noticed you can build up the Latin Empire as well, so when Byzantium collapses, or maybe you force it to collapse with the Fourth Crusade, you can kind of do things a bit more legitimately rather than it just being effectively Byzantine Empire 2.0 with a Latin title slapped on. Won't go over everything, so I'll be here all day, but to bookend the Byzantine chat, there is a massive amount of specific Byzantine folks as well. Cultural traditions, man-at-arms, activities, events, everything you kind of expect from a region expansion in addition to everything else. Before we move on to absolutely correctly the best part of this DLC, objectively correctly the best part of this DLC, no offense Byzantine fans, that being the Landless Adventurers, I should probably mention the schemes, because those have been totally overhauled this time around. They've kind of gone, when we first started in CK3, I was quite critical of the schemes, because I liked the way CK2 worked in that it was more or less purely random. Crusader Kings III took that system and kind of gamified it quite heavily in that it ticked up every month, and then eventually it fired or it failed, and you obviously got activities that could speed it up effectively. Now, schemes are totally different, and they've taken it in completely the opposite direction to Crusader Kings II, But I think this is exactly where it needs to be if they are going to move away from that. It's super interactive now. You can pick different scheme approaches. You invite multiple agents to a scheme that all have a specific role inside the scheme as well. Depending on the type of scheme, you get certain other effects where your inner circle can be breached effectively and people can find out secrets. And what I love about this DLC, and I'll bring this up way more in the Landless Adventurer, is I've always said this. Crusader Kings is best not when it's just your character doing awesome stuff. And of course that feels good. But I like it when you've got an entire entourage of characters doing interesting stuff. You've got a best friend character that's important. You've got children that are off doing things. So many of my playthroughs I end up abdicating and giving that previous character something to do as an interesting side story to the realms. You've got that A-B plot going on. I always think that's so much more fascinating than just you being this kind of character of destiny carrying everything on your shoulders. What I love about this, and especially, again, the Landless Adventurer playthrough, is that with the new scheme system, with the Landless Adventurers and the governance, you get all these really minor, but very, very important characters cropping up. Because they're suddenly hoisted this massive responsibility. They'll repeatedly come up. You come to rely on them. It's almost like an enhanced hook system in a way, especially for Landless Adventurers, where you can leverage these relationships that you've built up. And it adds an entire new level of depth that I'm so happy to explore when we get to the Landless Adventurer section. With, of course, a much more in-depth scheming system where you can do so much more. It gives a bit of agency to the AI as well. You'll find that you've got countermeasures in place now. Ways to avoid certain fates coming in your direction. You might want to be a bit more violent. You might want to be a bit more alert. And these will affect modifiers on schemes that are being levied against you as well. A good example of this then is there's one called arbitrary arrest. Let's say, for example, you know there's a murder plot out there and someone's trying to kill you and you want to try and get on top of this by any means necessary. You go, boom, arbitrary arrest, it's going to turn you into a tyrant. You're going around rounding people up en masse, but it is going to massively impact that hostile plot against you to the point that they might not be able to murder you anymore. Whereas before, of course, it was, let's stick my spy master on defensive and hope I don't get killed. Now, I could sit here and I could show you more pre-recorded footage and screenshots, but to that. Oh, I'm not supposed to swear in this. I'm sorry. Listen, Paradox can't be angry at me for being excited about this mechanic, okay? This is like best case scenario. So this next bit, we're just going to jump in so I can show it off. That is, of course, again, the best feature of this DLC by a long way, Landless Adventurers. I'm struggling for a reason to not play this every single playthrough I do from now on. And of course, for the same reason why I wasn't particularly excited about Focus DLC is why I'm super excited for this one, because I'm imagining the idea of, in those Total Conversion mods, in the Elder Kings, in the Game of Thrones mod, playing as a landless adventurer, a hedge knight, some sort of wandering wizard, a conjurer, something like that throughout those realms, and experiencing what those incredibly talented teams do with this mechanic. It is the Elder Scrolls 6 that we are finally going to get. Or maybe I should say actually going to get. So we're going to dive in with the new game, and what you'll be greeted with here in 1066, the year of our Lord, is the Wandering Exiles bookmark, a selection of unlanded, wandering characters with camps and different backstories and intention, which you can just jump in as and immediately start exploring. Some of these characters have backstory, as it says, there's special story content available to give you an idea, to give you a focus, to give you a goal and a motivation. Some of them, like this guy here over in Byzantium, is just a second son of a second son, an explorer, a man maybe trying to make his way in the world, maybe trying to get back home, push his claims, or just found a whole new realm. It's open-ended. But I like doing something quite different. And this is something I found just casually playing, trying out the new systems. I think there's a much cooler start that we are sleeping on here. Not only can you create your own adventure from scratch, which will drop you in the capital province of whatever ruler you select, whether that's a king or a subduke or a count or something like that. There's obviously the landed rulers tab here as well, where you can see all of the many people hanging around. Lots of people over in Byzantine, which I think is definitely a recommended start for this bookmark and this DLC. I think you should jump in as the Byzantine Emperor himself. Oh, but you wanted to start as an adventurer. You wanted to start from nothing. There's a new mechanic here in Crusader Kings III where, as you're playing, historical characters can pop up midway through, as they used to in Crusader Kings II. And when you see them, with the DLC, you get the opportunity to swap over to them. And so, if we hang around in Byzantium for a year, you'll get a couple of people popping up. Historical characters that you get the opportunity to play as. We've got Michael the Stammerer and Joseph That guy right there. And this is one of my favorite mechanics that I just randomly encountered throughout the playthrough. Historical characters, real people that existed in history that you can just jump in and play as. And I love doing that in my playthroughs, going from one character to another, leaving behind a dynasty that you've established and you're connected with, and moving elsewhere. And of course, slowly populating a map of people that you are connected to, rather than just random historical figureheads. So in this case, we are going to be jumping in and playing as my good friend Joseph, however that word is pronounced. And this will throw us right into being a landless adventurer. Welcome to Crusader Kings III Roads to Power. Here we go. So when you end up as... Oh, obviously you'll immediately say, what the hell is that? What are these? I'm so confused. It's pretty straightforward, actually. Let me talk you through it. So when you jump in here, you are playing as a lone character. Single guy. No troops, no income, no prestige. With, of course, this character in particular starts with some gold. They don't always. And this guy has some provisions, which is the apple symbol up here that I'll explain in a second. The camp is quiet, so our first option is to recruit some people. How you want to play your character isn't necessarily determined by their previous path in life, by their education. You might think, oh, this guy's got level 5 martial education. He's incredibly skilled in prowess. Surely you want to go martial focus, and yeah, I mean, you could. That would certainly be the easiest way to go about things, but might not be what you're the most interested in, right? You're not pigeonholed into playing a martial character doing martial combats and fighting and battles and being a sword for hire just because that's what he's good at. That's just maybe the aspect that you might focus on. There's plenty of opportunities to focus on other things along the way, though. Let's take some, and to be fair, in this situation, I'm actually going to take some followers skilled in stewardship. We are going to get Leontios and Pavlos. Pavlos the devil and Leontios the honorable. Oh, you can be my angel or my devil. Fine, welcome aboard. Then we have, in our followers tab, our two new friends. I actually love the fact that we've got an angel and a devil on our shoulder. That's pretty fantastic. Totally random, of course. This is what I love about this DLC, is you can really establish this cast of characters. Characters you repeatedly have interactions with, because, of course, it's an incredibly small realm. Characters who will build up their personality and their interactions with you, and over time might make different demands. You might grow to like them far further and rely on them quite heavily. They might become a best friend that you eventually maybe want to land, you know, reward them for their loyalty, or maybe quite the opposite will happen, and they might even try and steal your band of warriors, or at the very least be disgusted by your awful schemes and walk off in a huff. So, the important mechanics then are, of course, no monthly income. You earn money by helping people out, by being that sword for hire, or whatever it is you actually have the opportunity to do here on the map. So right now here in Byzantium, or at least close to where we are currently stationed, where our camp currently is in Constantinople itself, we've got 3 jobs that we could take. We can perform in a play, which is probably diplomacy focused, believe it or not. We've got a martial focus one there, do a passage of arms. We have to go and do a show of force to some bandits there, and the Duke will reward us. Or we've got an opportunity there to hunt criminals. Think of it as contracts almost given to nobles of maybe lower scope like ourselves. Before we do that, though, let's discuss the provisions. So when I first did this, I was a little bit concerned this is something I would have to keep balanced and something that you'd have to focus on. Your provisions are consumed as you travel throughout the realm, as you move your camp. That is a way to obviously regenerate and get new quests for you to do. So if we quickly blast through all of these quests, there's not going to be anything to do for a while until some more spawn in. So what you do is pack up your camp, and maybe you move over to somewhere that's war-torn. Maybe you move somewhere where there's plagues. Maybe you move somewhere that is a bit more active, or a larger realm, or something like that. Say you start in Iceland, might not be the best place to find your fortune compared to, say, the Byzantine Empire. Right now, though, we'll stick where we are and see what we can do while we're here. So, you know what, let's show off the camp first things first. It's a humble abode. We've got some beautiful trees. We've got a dog. And most importantly of all, our pavilion. Oh, of course, you can change your name. We're just simply called the Sword Marchers right now. A band of companions and followers seeking their riches and trying to make it big in the world. You can rename that. You can also change your banner as well there, your coat of arms. What a great name for 3 guys just out here in the woods having a good time. Of course, I've made the flag a spilling wine goblet. The pavilion is the most basic building, allows you to, well, gives you the building slots you can use to actually put down other buildings, of course. Gives you certain titles. Now, buildings do a massive amount of different things. Some might help out with your schemes, and some jobs require you to pass a certain scheme. Think of it as almost like a mini quest, skill checks, that type of thing. They can affect your provisions. They can affect your personal skills. They can affect your ability to recruit new people. There's so much to it. And, of course, lots of men-at-arms bonuses, because that is for a particular military guy in a camp here, that's how you're going to get your forces in the first place. Man-at-arms don't reinforce either, mind. That's something you have to repeatedly refill with gold and provisions. There is an option to scrape the barrel if you're really desperate and you've put all your chips on the army. But for now, we won't worry about armies or anything like that. We're just going to focus on getting a good gang together of reliable, solidly skilled people so that we can do some quests and maybe work from there later down the line. We're going to go for a roaring campfire, I think, to kick things off then. Find more officers using Scout for talents. Unlocks fireside chat intent for camp revelry, because that's right, there's whole new camp options as well. You don't exactly have an enormous banquet hall, right? So you've got to have a little camp revelry instead with the activities tab. This is where things get really complex. Each building has each of these many buildings has a selection of sub-buildings, all of which give different benefits as well. So, for example, I was playing an awful criminal guy in my last playthrough, trying to do all the awful things, quick and dirty money as fast as possible. He died, sadly, very early on. Juicy rumors give you more give you more rewards from criminal contracts and a much higher intrigue score. And of course, there are many different approaches to that as well. Some give marshals, some give easier time doing marshal contracts and that type of thing. Probably what we should focus on for that guy. But for now, we'll shut down our roaring campfire and we can upgrade that later on. While we're waiting on that, we do have the option to gather provisions. We can just go out. We can notify when that's available. But for now, we're just going to go out there and see if we can find some stuff. Because, you know, we're obviously very good at prowess. We're going to go hunting. With my snares, I shall feed us all. We might gain some provisions there. Except we found nothing. That was an 82% chance. I don't like that. But of course, if we take a quest now with 3 of us, it's probably not going to be that impressive, is it? We're probably not likely to do much success there. So we're going to go and visit the local castle. When you move to places, we can visit the actual capital province and try and recruit some people, get some skills, get some modifiers that might help us with the next quest that we go on. Let's have a look at Constantinople's castle. And one thing you can do if you've got the right positions open in camp, you can steal important characters effectively from the court here. The Master Arms, for example, you can get to come and join you as a quartermaster in your camp. Let's go visit the local training grounds. And as you can see there, if we had a proving grounds, we could take their Master Arms. Alternatively, we can give this guy 120 gold. Don't think we've really got the gold to burn right now to increase our prowess by 1 and really just double down on that. But we're okay for the time being. Look for able bodies at the garrison, and we could hire some people. They cost gold, but again, you come into a training grounds, they're probably going to be quite good at martial. This guy's actually pretty well skilled. Or, alternatively, we can lose some money gambling, which we did. Oh, this is not going well, is it? Okay, so maybe the castle didn't go well. Why don't we go to the tavern instead? I'm sure there's someone here that would join us. Let's have a seat by the fire and have a listen to a story or two. This lady told a very nice tale. There's a chance we might gain some diplomacy out of that or diplomacy lifestyle experience. Worst case scenario for this free event is we get 3 months of little extra diplomacy there as well. Let's see who's up for recruitment. And these are totally random outcomes, by the way. Sometimes we might get the ability to, as you'll see in a second, find a lover in this tavern. Sometimes that might not be an option. There might be something entirely different happening. Hello, we've got another couple of people that we can recruit here. I'm going to start taking some people. I think that might be a good idea because we're going to need to be able to get some work going here. Are you two any good? Ooh, this guy is good. Very, very high learning. You're very, very high intrigue. Ooh. Let's take you. I like the idea of being a dirty, underhanded guy. Speaking of a dirty-handed under guy, there's someone here. Walk up to the siren by the counter. That's very rude. How about I buy you another mug of Cretan Muscat? Nonna joins our camp. Hello. Another wandering character who might join us. Again, very, very good at intrigue. You know what? Do you have a map? I just got lost in your eyes. We can just try and charm her, and she'll join us. Come on. We've got to get something lucky here, please. Failed to... Oh, what's happening? What else can we do? We could go and buy some supplies, or the town crier might have something for us. And this one's important because the town crier can give you more quests, spawn in more quests, effectively. We've got diplomacy contracts, justicia contracts, or martial duties, which I think we'll take. Costs us a little prestige. And with that, and a bunch of people recruited, should we go back to the castle and go hire some people? Oh, I can't hire them now. They've moved on. Okay, fair enough. I think next time we'll try and grab some more fellas. We've expanded our entourage. We've managed to pick up Eustianios, our club-footed intrigue master. With that, my friends, it's off to adventure, by which I mean fishing. We can go fishing for a little stress loss, and of course, chance at I've had this event fire where we've become friends with some of the people. We've taken some of the people from camp fishing, exchanged some skills, gained some opinion, or in this case, apparently we can gain the trait calm from it. That's quite powerful. 1% chance of just getting a free trait there. Alternatively, we can get some provisions out of it, which of course we failed again, because why wouldn't we? Feeling a little victimized right now, starting to need a victory. So let's get out there And let's go do a job for someone. We're going to go and do a passage of arms. We're going to help this man here, the bridge in Calliope, keep some bandits away by force. This guy, of course, is going to pay us for it, and he will gain some opinion of us. Very relevant, as you'll see in a second. When this happens, you travel like any time you would normally travel in Crusader Kings. We can throw in some extra stuff here, so we can move slower, but potentially also get some more talent to our entourage, which I do want to do, I think. That's worked out quite well for me in the past before. And let's plow over there. One thing I will say is, I don't know what they've done for optimization this DLC, but it absolutely blitzes along at speed 5. Wonderful morning we have here, he starts. A perfect chance to show those ruffians the value of a true... That indeed. You see, there's a bridge that goes right into Calliope. All manner of miscreants, fools, and idiots hang about there. Someone should take care of that. I shall break 300 lances. Shall we go for the option? This is our approach to the quest, effectively. We can focus on higher success chance. That gives us 2 muscle, an outcast, a thug, and a lookout. Obviously, you can kind of infer what each one of those will require. Muscle probably requires higher prowess, right? We can say it'll take a couple of days, at which point we get a muscle, 2 lookout, and 2 footpad. Again, these would kind of be obvious, as you can see there. Intrigue and prowess. Lookout is intrigue and martial, and then muscle is prowess, like I said. We get to the bridge, and of course, you can tailor the quest depending on the entourage that you've got with you. We're going to go for this one here. Adds agent slots that focus on higher success chance, because I want to get the ball rolling. I'm going to break it down very simply. We've got a maximum success chance, which in this case is 30%, because only we're in the scheme right now. That's how much we contribute personally. That scheme will grow over time. As you can see there, per phase, which is an arbitrary amount of time depending on your phase length, which is, again, determined by the stats of the people involved in the type of scheme it is. So in this case, it's prowess. We've got good prowess, so those schemes will go by... Sorry, those phases will go by faster, allowing you to get to that maximum success quicker. There are events that will influence that as well. We're starting at 4%, and we're going to get 24 per phase. And depending on the difficulty of the person who's giving you the quest, that will affect the difficulty as well. So we've got the success chance there. As you can see, muscle, outcast, and thug affect the success chance. Lookout affects the speed. So if you're doing a really easy mission and you're a super experienced band of followers, you probably want to go all in on the length, lower it, and get it done as fast as possible, right? In this case, because we're starting off by ourselves, we've only got 30%. We've got a bunch of muscle that's going to come and help us out. So by adding this guy, we get another 10% to our scheme length. So I'm going to get him involved. He's more than happy to join us, right? And all of these people are more than happy to join us. This guy only contributes 5, so I'm going to have a look and see if he's better elsewhere. Whoa. This guy is obviously very, very good as an outcast. Again, determined by their traits. There are some negative modifiers there, so outcasts who are gregarious and ambitious aren't going to perform well because they're not outcasts, right? No one wants to be a thug, and, ooh, this guy's very good as a lookout, but I think in this situation, I want the success chance, because it's going to go by quite fast anyway, because it's a prowess quest, and we're very good at prowess. Then we've got the opportunity of either 5 or 1, so we're going to trick you in as muscle. He's not very good muscle, but he's better than nothing in this case. There you go, fella. Now we've got the squad lined up. We're going to sit here, and we're going to wait for some opportunities, probably at a lower speed, otherwise it'll blitz through in 2 seconds flat. Now, when the phase is complete, we get these here. We get advantages with every phase. You get 1 advantage per phase, and when you get events, you can gain more advantages. Those advantages can be spent to complete the scheme. You need 5 minimum, but for every advantage you spend, you get that much in percentage, up to a maximum of plus 20%. Ooh, and here we have our first villainous act, potentially villainous act, of course, depending on who you want to play. Our guy's deceitful, but he is also just, so perhaps this guy wouldn't immediately come in here and barge his way into an inn, demanding that they serve us, even though this lady thinks that we are ragtag. I'm afraid I absolutely require lodging. We gain dread. It's only going to cost us 5 gold to lodge here, but there's a chance we become gallows bait, which is effectively the negative bandit trait. So the way gallows bait works is when you do an illegal activity, in this case, we're going to threaten an innkeeper. We could also potentially murder her if we're not careful. Depending on the outcome there, we'll either gain experience in being a bandit if we're just going to threaten her to give us the room, or things get out of hand, we murder her, and we become a marauder, which is much more violent. So that will give us these paths here. All of these will, well, a lot of them reduce general opinion, reduce legitimacy. You might get dread gain, though. You might be able to influence people better because you're a renowned trickster, a very experienced trickster. That one even gives diplomacy. I did a lot of thievery with a lot of stewardship tasks where you're working for people. You can siphon off a bit of money to the side, and that really helps you build up your camp a little sooner. As you can see, being a thief as well gives you practice in secrecy. This is a lot of fun, and I really do want to try and become, like, the world's greatest villain in one of my playthroughs. I think that would be quite interesting. But the downside to this is it's a criminal activity. Of course, in Crusader Kings, when you do something illegal, you can get imprisoned, you might get executed. Or in the Byzantine Empire, you might get even worse. So we've got to be very careful with that. And of course, if we get caught and if they get a legitimate imprisonment region on us, that's when you've got to pack your camp up and move on elsewhere. In this situation, though, we got lucky. I didn't hit that 5% chance of murdering her as I've done before. We got away with it. We got the discount and we didn't become gallows bait. And then our finger curls on the monkey's paw because the guy that we were doing the mission for died. What is happening? And then on the way back, we ate poison at camp and became ill. Who have I angered? Who have I angered with this playthrough? Perhaps the silver lining, look at this, as we travel through Byzantium, or at least return to Byzantium, Constantinople, a man called Hyperios is selling some dodgy goods. Good steward character could be quite nice, so I'm going to take you. Welcome, my friend. We've got a taste for adventure. A bad taste for adventure. We got nothing to show for it. We've lost 200 gold and 74 prestige, and now we're dying. But maybe we need to reassess the situation. We can choose, of course, a lifestyle as per. Now, I was kind of curious how this works, because a lot of lifestyle perks affect landed characters, affect your vassal relations, or casus belli and stuff like that. In this case, they've all been reworked somewhat to... when you're landed, of course, they still work as they used to. But this time, they have been reworked for a landless character when you're landless. I think a better example of how they've been retooled is certainly the Architect tab. So cutting costs, for example, normally reduces, what is it, like man-at-arms upkeep. You don't have any gold coming in here. You've just got to pay for them manually. So in this case, refilling your man-at-arms, going out there buying more man-at-arms to replenish your lost units costs a flat amount less. Your camp tax, of course, normally I think it increases it by 10%, right? This case, it actually gives you an income. Maybe further down the way, we've got See How It's Done. Visiting a point of interest, award 20 gold. Again, benefiting that nomadic lifestyle, encouraging a lot of movement around the map, building up those relationships. Kind of hoping we can succeed with the mission here. Before we head out, though, arguably the most important mechanic is effectively selecting the government type for your camps. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. You've got the camp purpose. This will have an impact on your playstyle about how this goes. So we're on Become Wanderers right now, just an equal chance to find contracts. Swords for Hire might suit the character a bit better. We find more mercenary contracts, more prowess, more martial contracts, and it unlocks brand new buildings for the settlement as well. I played, of course, Become Freebooter. You get a bunch of, you can firstly embark cheaper, which is nice, sail around a bit quicker and get to the different parts of the map. Find more criminal contracts, you get more prowess, you get more intrigue, and you get all those unique camp upgrades that I showed that give extra secrecy or better reward payout. Higher risk, higher reward. And again, I think this is probably my favorite play style anyway, it's the freebooter. Let's go beat some hired muscle. We're ill, we're sick, we haven't got a core position. We can't rest on our laurels. I mean, we can, but of course, we're not going to make any money doing that. We haven't got an heir. Ah, blessing. We haven't got an heir, and of course, we're not going to find we're just sitting around being sick. So let's get out there. This time, higher success chance. I know I chose that the first time. Don't question it, okay? Much like any other court, as I've talked about, you get to unlock certain titles. You start with a bunch by default, your court physician and everything else. But we find someone good at doing that. But you also get to unlock them with your new buildings. In this case, it's asking, who do you want to set up as our second? In this case, I want to be a villainous man. I'm going to pick Pavlos the Devil. He seems like a trustworthy fella. Of course, it's going to cause a rift in the camp when you are accepting the loyalty of Pavlos and putting everyone else on the back foot there. They're going to be upset, but we've got a strong loyalty hook on him. What I like is that also gives him a lot of buffs as well. You're effectively designating a character that you want to have some story elements about, somebody you want to feature more in your story in Crusader Kings III, which I think is fantastic. We do not have a good court position. In fact, it might be better just not to have anybody at this point. Round 2. I want one successful mission. Please, just one successful mission for the video. That's all I ask. Here we go. Look at this. Justinianos can be our outcast. Beautiful. There you go. Welcome. Takes up to 52%. That's nice to see. Pavlos the Devil. Welcome, my friend. With 13, was that his best outcome? Was indeed. There you go. That one is yours. And then we've got to hire some muscle. Honestly, I think I prefer the success chance at this point. We'll take slightly longer, but we won't put anyone in footpad just so that we can lock in a 75%. And hopefully, the guy that we're doing a mission for won't die this time. And with absolutely no events whatsoever, we're going to conclude our contract. We're going to seize the moment. That's just going to lock us in at 75%. Oh my god, we succeeded at long last. Thank you. And there he is. Look at that. More than happy to hand over the cash. Looks like we're robbing him. 94 gold for a few months of work isn't bad, even by medieval ruler standards, huh? You'd struggle to get the same amount in tax at this point in time. I'm going home to spend this on some new buildings, if you don't mind. There's our Roaring Campfire. Unlock some new events for us. We can use the Scout for Talent option, of course, when we're traveling. And, of course, our Camp Rev already gets some new options. But there's also sub-buildings. Oh, there's so much, isn't there? This, I think, highlights what I was trying to explain earlier, and I'm not sure I did very well. Doesn't really matter what you've picked if you want to retool your playstyle. my guy's incredibly good at martial. But if you were a diplomat and you wanted to raise a man-at-arms army with your diplomatic prowess and rally people to your banner, there are opportunities to do so. If you're a sneaky, underhanded bandit that you are going to almost trick people into joining your cause, you very much can do so, and you can still have that martial outcome. That, I think, is something I very much get stuck on when I play feudal characters, is you play the character, which generally means if you get an intrigue education, you play an intrigue-focused character, right? But in this case, there's so much flexibility, so many ways to justify our character doing certain things, and then maybe we'll wrap things up very quickly with a touch of camp revelry. Let's go ahead and have a fireside chat then, the thing that we chose with our campfire. We can pick some food bonuses. Oh, we don't have a supply tent. I built one before, but sadly we don't have one here, and we don't have a mess tent either, so we can't even get some nice drinks. We're just going to sit here with our meager, probably poisoned... Oh, come on! Wrap it up there. I couldn't think of a more perfect ending. The second the words left my lips, he immediately became ill. A poor man that I have doomed to a horrible life. Thank you for joining me here today. Over the next couple of days, I will be starting a brand new playthrough. We're going to start with a totally custom character, and I want to try and avoid some of the usual cliches I fall into with those. So we're gonna go completely from fresh. We're gonna start as an adventurer. We're gonna start small. I would love to work my way through the Byzantine Empire so that we can see all of those new mechanics, basically everything this DLC has to offer. Don't think I've played in the Byzantine Empire before either, so we'll work on that and maybe try and restore Rome from being a totally landless, random, feckless man. I think that would be perfect. And of course, a big thank you to Paradox for sponsoring this video. Thank you for giving me the DLC early so that I can play around with it. This is reignited a spark for Crusader Kings III that I think had petered out previously, and I'm very, very excited to see. And I hope more DLC like this in the future. This is exactly what we want. Again, perfect middle ground between focusing on mechanics, but also giving stuff that can apply so broadly to absolutely everything else. The way that this is going to interact with mods is going to be super exciting, so very happy to see it. This is an easy buy. Personally, I purchased it, and then Paradox sent me a key for the preview build, so I sent my key to someone else that I purchased originally, so kind of evened out there, but this is something that I'm very happy to say is absolutely on track with where I'd like to see. It's almost the societies that I loved from Crusader Kings II.